Touchdown MJT football. What's going on, internet? How you doing? Wherever you're at, wherever you're watching, if you're listening to it after you're live, we appreciate your time, your ears, your eyes, however you're taking this in. MJT football again. Tony, that's Joe. Mike isn't with us today, taking a little vacation time, but you can find him, NFL Mike, TikTok. Follow him over there. Great slate of games this weekend. Like, I looked around and, like a couple of weeks in a row, I've been hearing people, Joe, and they go, not a great slate. Don't really love it. But every week the NFL doesn't disappoint, right? You sent me that picture of the official parity meter where it's like this team beat that team, this team beat that team. Harrison is in the building. We'll get to you in a second. Look at the board, Harrison. You're going to love it. I think that, like, this week I have massive expectations for, Joe, but, like, what if some of these games don't deliver? We got KC and Miami, and we got the Bills and the Bengals on Sunday night, and the Cowboys and the Eagles, and Giants and Raiders. I mean, we got some real bangers this week, but what if they don't live up?
Yeah, even like I don't think there's one bad matchup because there's some games that you're looking at and you're like, I don't want to watch that game. But even the Cardinals-Browns game, you're kind of interested in seeing it and seeing how Kyler Murray comes back, right? If he is going to start this week, I don't know if they gave him the okay. I know they were keep checking on him. But even if he doesn't, then you want to see how the other quarterback does because they traded Dobbs this week. He's gone. He's going to Minnesota. So it's like you want to see and then some of the new additions to the teams. Like, I want to see Leonard Williams on Seattle. I want to see some of these new guys and how they do with their new team. So it's interesting. I don't think there's one game on here that you're like, I don't want to watch it. Like, I will watch. I think every single one of these games, if you had it on in front of me, I would turn it on. I'm just like, okay.
For sure. I do think Arizona is the least because I believe Clayton Tune was announced as the starter. I'd have to go and double check, but I think I saw a notification come through that said Clayton Tune will be starting. So that feels like kind of a drubbing in the process. Deshaun Watson's back this week. We'll get more into that game later. Let's just go ahead and talk about our thoughts from Thursday Night Football. And then when we finish that, I'll let you pick the first game that you want to talk about. And we're going to alternate picks in our excitement meter.
So if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That's all we ask for. And if you're over on TikTok, come on over to YouTube, MJT Football on YouTube. We can pull your comments on the screen, and you have every one of our picks. Tony, I don't know if you mentioned this, but Mike, since you started talking crap to us 2 weeks ago, Mike and I have sort of made a comeback. I was 5 picks back from you, making some dumb picks. We're starting to get it. This is the great time of the NFL. This is when the teams start to separate themselves, and we can start making our better picks. But, Tony, I just want to let you know that you're tied for first place now. You're not number one anymore.
I'm not going to lie. Pretty much my entire life has worked like this. Anytime that I start to talk shit, things like karmically come back and drag me back down. Like, I've never been able to talk trash and then for things to continue to roll for me. It's happened to me in pickup basketball games. I'll start off shooting, 4 for 6 and firing and just talking shit to who's ever guarding me. And then sure enough, I'll miss my next 4 or 5 shots in a row. That's just how everything's gone, where it's like, and it's playful talking shit. Like, I'm not really trying to start anything, verbal, physical, no animosity, just having a little fun, talking a little shit to you guys about stupid picks. And sure enough, my lead evaporates in 1 week. Just absolutely abysmal for me. No fun, by the way, too. But I'll keep talking shit. I'm coming back. I'm going to bury both of you guys this year. It's the bottom line.
Hey, so football Sunday, we got another 6:30 game tomorrow for us on the West Coast, right? 6:30 in the morning, Germany this time, and they're sending one of the best matchups to Germany. Like, the one matchup that you want to see this year is probably the Dolphins versus the Chiefs, and it won't even be on our own soil. They're sending it across the pond. We got to wake up early and watch this game, Tony. But I think it's going to be a really good game. Let's see what Tua can do against what I think is one of the best defenses in the league this year in Kansas City, which is surprising because when would we ever say that Kansas City's defense is considered a top 5 defense? That's kind of weird to me. Miami's offense has been on fire. Jalen Ramsey back, another week of Jalen Ramsey getting involved in that Big Fangio defense. We're all taking the Dolphins in this game. But do you think there's any chance that the Chiefs can pull this upset?
Do I think? Yeah, of course. And this is one by the end of the show, I might switch this pick over to get the Chiefs too, right? Because I'm going to get, solo Kansas City. This is, how we always talk about shit that you can't really gauge, but then you're like, all the metrics people are like, if you're going to travel abroad, you got to leave early. Leave on Tuesday. Don't leave Friday. Well, the perfect test for that is Patrick Mahomes. Like, does it not matter when you have the best player in the league? Like, do you have that? And I do think that last week's loss to the Broncos, although it was way overdue, it had been since pre-Patrick Mahomes, since the Broncos had beat them or whatever. But I think that it was humbling enough for Kansas City to say, hey, we are struggling a little bit on offense. Let's keep it simple. Let's run the football and let's really live with our defense. Let's be fine scoring 23 points as long as we're like cashing in, getting some Butker field goals, getting the game, keeping the game close late, and then letting Patrick and Trav do their magic and lean on Pacheco a little bit. I love Tyreek Hill talking shit, where he's like, I was kind of hoping this game was at Arrowhead, but I'm going to give them this work wherever. Like they are going to take this. And I do believe that he is going to have a chance to have his way. Like L'Jarius Sneed, fantastic year. He will crush him. Trent McDuffie, great slot corner. He will crush him. It doesn't matter who they put on him. It better be multiple people in this game.
Yeah, and Tyreek's going to go out there and want to put on a show. And the good thing for me, Tony, is I have Tyreek Hill on my fantasy team, so he can go crazy all he wants. When Tyreek Hill was on the Chiefs, I stayed away from him, just to let you know, because I didn't want that Chiefs juju on my fantasy team. But I'll let Tyreek go for 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, whatever he wants to do to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm for it this weekend. But we're all taking Miami this weekend in Germany. I don't know, Tony. I'm starting to love the 6:30 games. I don't know about you. Sundays are already dedicated to football. I don't know if my wife loves it as much or my family loves it as much. But being on the West Coast, waking up at 6:30 in the morning and watching football all from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at night is the greatest feeling. Like, and when football's gone, we're gonna be like, man, this is gonna be the longest offseason. So I'll take as much football and as many games that we can watch individually.
Yeah,
I'll take that as well. Like if we can add another game where we're watching just this game, because I love watching the red zone. Don't get me wrong. I love watching the red zone, but it's so much easier to be like, let's watch this game, then watch this game, instead of like so many other games going on. And you're like, damn it. So that's why I liked at the end of this year, I liked how to jump ahead of ourselves. That's why I like how they have 3 Thanksgiving games and then they added a Black Friday game. That's more games for us. The more games that we can see, the better for us, right? The better for NFL fans. And I think it makes everybody who is a football fan and who loves football, I think it makes you look better because you're not just watching your team anymore. You're not just watching the Chargers. You're not just watching the Raiders. You're watching everybody else play, and you can compare your team against that team or against those teams and see the level of play and start to learn more football. So I love that they're giving more showcases to some of these teams or some games.
Yeah, and it almost has like a Super Bowl type feel. I know these teams can't play each other in the Super Bowl, but it being in like a neutral ground and you get 2 teams for 6-2, because this game really could be for home field advantage in the playoffs. Like these 2 teams are on pace to win their division and be 2 of the top record teams in the AFC. And this could be a AFC championship game where we look back on it, we go, oh, this game is in Miami because Miami was able to go to Germany and win the game. So there's a lot to look forward to. The Dolphins really also haven't beaten a strong team this year, which it's it's not everything, but it's not nothing. Like I do think that you at a certain point, I would like to see the Dolphins win a game against a really big opponent. And as a Chargers fan, there's no bigger game that you could crush a team than beating the Chiefs. That would really bring some joy to my early Sunday morning. Like I would just be flying high headed into the 10 o'clock games, knowing the Chiefs just took back-to-back L's for like the first time in Patrick. Maybe not the first time, but I think like it hasn't happened in like 3 years since he's taken back-to-back losses.
And somebody asked in my comments on TikTok, they said, what time is the game if I'm in Thailand? Because I guess they're in Thailand. It's 8 p.m. That game starts at 8 p.m. So you watch football all night in Thailand.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to give the answer to that. I'm not familiar with the Thailand time zone.
Me neither, but Google's free, Tony. So
all right, Joe, it's my pick. And I think the game that I'm going to select is going to be I'm going to go with Seahawks and the Ravens. So the reason I'm excited to see this game is because I think the Ravens have had a little bit of like good fortune mixed in also with them playing like them beating themselves. Like when I look at it, I go, man, the Ravens really could be 8-0 right now. Like that's how good they're playing. But then I look at it and I go, wait, they got Dorian Thompson-Robinson and they got another rookie. They got another backup quarterback in a game. And it's like, I look at who they've beaten and it's not overly impressive, but the fact that they continue to win games to me is what's like, that's what you got to do. Because I sit here and complain about the fact that the Chargers have a better record, but they're not beating some of the teams they could or should be beating, and now they're in a tough spot. So props to the Ravens. For the Seahawks, though, Joe, like I look at this and I go, keep the 49ers down while you're down. Like take a full game lead in the NFC West, which I picked the Seahawks to win that division. And this would really, really be good for them to go on the road and get this win. It'd also be nice to see Geno, like, let's get back to being Geno last year, where you were slinging it and throwing it around, because Geno's that one guy where you look at him and you go, holy, Geno Smith, like, how has this guy not had a better career? Like, top 10 talent. And then the next series, it'll be like, oh, yeah, that's why. Like his fluctuation in play is like top 5 quarterback, like legit some drives. You'll see him, the way he can move around, the way he can throw the ball. He can put it almost anywhere. And then the next play, you'll see Geno and you're like, what was he looking at? What was he doing? What made that decision? The variance in his game is so wide. I think that's kind of what's made him be sort of a late bloomer. But I want to see more of the great Geno that we've seen and less of the unreliable, unpredictable Geno. So I'm rooting for that. I can't pick that to win though.
So I'm taking Baltimore to win this game, but this was the one game I told you off the air before we were starting. I said there was one game where I wanted to flip back and forth, and I was thinking about it. And it's because the way the Seattle defense has been playing. Last week, they beat the Browns, and that was like on the last second. A lot of help from the defense. That Seattle defense, they went out there this offseason and they said, we're making the defense our priority. We're going to get this defense better so we can compete with the Niners, so we can compete with the NFC. And that's what they felt like was holding them down. Geno has taken a step back this year. I don't know why, but it's I don't know if they're trying to force it with the 3 wide receiver sets, going away from the run game a little bit. But I don't know what's going on with that offense that made it a little bit different from last year. But this is the one game where I'm like, I can see Seattle making a couple big defensive plays and tearing it up. But Lamar Jackson and that offense looks like they're starting to get it going, starting to know the system, the new system that they brought in, and And I don't know, Tony. I just couldn't go with Seattle on the road after what they did. And I know they pulled that victory off, but it was a tough victory for them last week. And sometimes that takes a lot out of your out of your team, and then to travel all the way to the East Coast on top of that, and play early morning. That's where I'm going. I'll go with Baltimore. So I'm not going to switch over, but this was one that I'm looking at. If Seattle wins, I'm like, okay, I saw that coming.
Yeah, it's I think it's a good test because we feel like both these teams are destined to be playoff teams. I think both of these teams can win multiple playoff games. So it'll be interesting to see how this one shakes out for sure. I don't know. When I watched the Seahawks game last week, I was like, this is multiple weeks in a row where I think they should be losing, but they're finding ways to win. As to where the Ravens have had multiple times this year where it's like, oh, they're whooping on teams. So can the
why do we do that to ourselves? Like every time we go, oh, they won, but it was a tough win and they had to come back and they should have lost that game. But good teams find a way to win, and then we always talk shit about them like, oh, but they should have lost that game. But they didn't. They a good team will always find a way to win.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they made a move to try and replace, bringing in Leonard Williams, or you replace the loss of Uchenna Nwosu, but you get somebody who's more of an interior rusher, which I think is going to make a big edge. It's going to help Boye Mafe and Derek Hall. I really thought Darrell Taylor, who's another edge rusher that they are going to expand the role of, like he was playing really nice out on the edge. Jamal Adams is getting his legs back underneath him. It's going to be interesting to see if they do some sort of a spy with Jamal Adams on following around Lamar Jackson a little bit, seeing if he can contain his legs. There's a lot of good matchups that I see from the Ravens side too, where it's like, do they have enough in the secondary to play with 3 wide receivers and really a good I think we forget about Noah Fant, because he's just not really ever been in a situation where an offense features him. But the guy's really talented, and they have a lot of pass catching ability there. So I'm excited. This is one of the games that I will tune in first on Monday morning when I rewatch the condensed versions of games. I believe I'll pick this one probably first, like to go back even over Eagles Cowboys. Like this is just one that I really believe is going to be great.
All right, so it's my pick, and you know what I'm picking, Tony? The game that I'll be at, Tony. The Giants and the Raiders. The new energy in the building. Head coach fired. General manager fired. A starting quarterback. Get your ass on the bench, Jimmy G, because we're starting the rookie for the rest of the season. New energy coming in, going back to what they consider, or what we consider, the Raider way, the Patriot way. Gone. It's dead. It's no coming back from the Patriot way. The Raider way, hard-nosed, hard-hitting, and just running the football is what they are looking forward to. Look, all this talk can be out there, Tony, and I'm buying into it. Antonio Pierce's first press conference was like, fuck yeah, let's go. Let's get this going. But then you sit back and you go, well, the players still got to go out there and put it on the field. The offense still needs to go out there and put 20 points up. The offense still needs to go out there and provide something for us fans to be like, yes, here we go. That energy's gone. Josh McDaniels' system is gone. Now what? Now can you go out there and show us something different? Show us that it was just Josh McDaniels. Show us that it was just what he was doing. I want to see something different. If they come out here and their offense is the same fucking offense, then Raider fans, we're going to be like, what the fuck was this? Devontae, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, all these guys need to get involved. And I think AOC, we've been calling for AOC since the Charger game. Hey, leave him out there. Let's see what we got on him. But I'm not going to sit here and discount the Giants either, because we've seen the Giants have a really good defense coordinator, right? And Don Martindale, that he can make some schemes. He could hold some teams down. And I'm not going to discount him, but let's see if this new energy can pick the Raiders and lead them to the right direction.
So I think part of the reason that Aiden O'Connell didn't start, and I'm sure Raider fans have read all the blogs and know they'll be able to tell me if I'm wrong or right here. But if he was going to go down, he wanted to go down with the ship that he brought in, which was Jimmy G, or a veteran quarterback. Like, he didn't feel like he could put out Aiden O'Connell as a rookie that they didn't have a lot of draft capital in and lose games and still have a job at the end of the year. So if he was going to lose, he was going to lose to Jimmy G, which was stupid. You can't expect the offense to be that much different. You can't expect them to just roll in on a short week with a new administration. You can't just expect them to roll in a bunch of plays. So the offense isn't going to look tremendously different. And I am, as a Chargers fan, picking the Raiders to win this week based on the energy of Antonio Pierce. Like, Raiders fans should remember, just getting Frank Reich out of the building, Jeff Saturday, who couldn't beat anybody last year in his first game, beat the Raiders. Because for whatever reason, when you get like that sour taste out of the building, everybody is like, they're sort of revived. It's like an extra adrenaline and like everything you can go on, just pure emotion going out there and catching a team that's not very good in the Giants, right? Like, we're talking a lot about the Raiders side of the football, but if we go to the Giants side of the ball, like, the offense is bad. The offense is bad with DeVito. The offense is bad with Taylor. Daniel Jones is coming back this week. It wasn't good with him. Like, even with Daniel Jones hasn't scored a first half offensive touchdown all year. So, like, I believe this game is super low scoring, something like 13-10, 12-10, 12-9, where it's a game that the Raiders find a way to pull out in the end. I do think that the fans are going to be back at the game this weekend. Like, I think a lot of fans will show up to support Mark Davis for doing something that they've been very, very vocal about. So I'm going to take the emotions at home against a Giants team that really is only good defensively. Like, they're without Waller, and Daniel Jones is coming back in and is still a little banged up. And if he's banged up and they have to go to DeVito again,
and then what we're forgetting about is we don't really have the greatest defensive interior linemen. So if you run Saquon Barkley up the middle, you might get 4 to 5 yards to carry on this Raider defense. And we've seen it before. And if you run up the middle of the Raider defense, I mean, come on. And Barkley can put this team on his back himself, and he can carry this team down there. He don't need Danny Dimes throwing to some weak-ass wide receivers. He could do it. I would have loved to see Darren Waller come back and get, against the Raiders and have his little homecoming where people could have said, hey, thank you, Waller, or whatever. But he'll be on the sideline. I'll be in the stadium, Tony. I'm going to take a sign. I don't know what sign, what I should put on my sign. If you have any anything that I should put on there, but I'm going to try to get wear that sign out there. But I'll be there rooting on the Raiders, getting that energy back. The players have been calling for the Raider fans to come back to it. Tony, they got Rick Ross at halftime for this game. So, I mean, come on.
I have an idea, Joe. You should bring a big cardboard fake resume, right? Like, I've been making bad picks on my podcast since 2019. Apply to be the general manager on the application. Guarantee a sign like that would get you on there. Like, your credentials, like I coach little league football or whatever it is. Like, I've got an eye for talent. Just get out there, apply to be the GM of this team, because the Raiders organization is in such a bad spot, and they've now gone back-to-back offensive coaches, right? Like, I think if the Raiders are going to head in a direction, like, they really just have to get somebody in there who's stable. And I think they also kind of have to go cheap, because you're paying Gruden, you're paying McDaniels, you have this contract with Jimmy G. Like, there's just a lot of money going out for not a lot in return. And so they might need to swing. Like, we just talked about the Ravens, the defensive coordinator, McDonald. He was good at the University of Michigan. He's now good in the pros with the Ravens. Like, they might need to get a little bit creative with who they take. And I think try and create and build the team around Max Crosby and the defensive side of the ball. Like, that might be the option, especially in a division where you're going up against Mahomes, Herbert, Sean Payton's going to get things together right with the Broncos. Like, why not try and be the team that's just like tough and rugged and crazy? I don't know. I hope it all is terrible and horrible, and the Raiders just continue to be abysmal.
Yeah, and we could talk about the Raiders' future on another show, but a lot of people like I said the odds are that Jim Harbaugh would be the next head coach. F that. I don't want that. I don't want John Gruden back like some of these guys are crying. And then you have the offensive coordinators. You have Frank Smith from Miami. You have Ken Dorsey from Buffalo, and you have, of course, Eric Bieniemy, and then somebody else, right? You have the young guys. But me, Tony, I'm with you. I want a defensive guy. Antonio Pierce, I don't, when's the last time you saw a coach come out and talk like Antonio Pierce, Tony? Like, to come out here and be like, you know what? I'm from Compton. We're a hard-hitting team. We're going to do this. I'm not saying that he's going to be the greatest coach. So, but I want a defensive guy. Here's my resume real quick before we move on from this game. I would give a second chance to Brian Flores, Raheem Morris, Dan Quinn, and those would be the top three. And there's probably one more. There was one more that I had on there, but those are the three that I would.
Spagnuolo?
I wouldn't give it. No, I'm good with Spagnuolo. I'm good with him. I'm not. You can pull him from the Chiefs, but Spagnuolo, he's already had 2 chances, right?
Really? I thought it was just the Rams. You coach another team?
Or what did he do in the New York, in the Giants? Was he a defense up there?
I don't think he was the head coach of the Giants. Jim Schwartz is a defensive guy for the Browns, but I mean, the defense doesn't look great a lot of the times. I just think, like, you're right. We will have more time to talk about this and whether it's going to be a retread or somebody new. But this
is my goal on Sunday, Tony.
Yeah.
My goal is I'm going to get, and maybe somebody's going to beat it to me. I don't know if they're watching and they're going to go to the game. My goal is to get the whole stadium chanting, "Thank you, Mark Davis."
I think that could be a pretty easy chant to start.
So I'm going to start. That is my goal, to get the whole stadium chanting that. I'm going to go there early. I'm going to take the sign. I'm going to get it going and try to get some good content. But hey, the Raiders feel looser sometimes. Like you said, just feeling like a loose team, being able to do what you want to do is good. But I'm not going to, like most Raider fans are like, this is going to be an easy win. I hope it is. But for us Raider fans that have been watching games for a long time, rooting for this team, there's no such thing as an easy win in Raider Nation. There's no such thing. But like you said, if you're calling for a close game, 13-12 or whatever, Tony, the Raiders coming back and winning at the last moment, that's Raider football right there. We can't have a game where we just go out there and blow a team out and be like, it's 30-7 and the Raiders are winning this game. It's like, no, we have to have that heartbreaking moment.
Yeah, and I think Tyree Wilson's got a great chance to get his first sack. Like Danny Dimes is susceptible to taking sacks. The offensive line is banged up. Like there could be a lot to cheer about. My last thing, because we've spent too much time talking Raiders here, is Antonio Pierce has a little bit of that Dan Campbell energy. And that is, we've seen that be effective, where it is a little bit of rah-rah, and it's exciting for a team that needs that. And then you can build on that in the future. Yeah. Like, you get the right players in that have that same mindset, and now all of a sudden the Lions look tougher than they've been since Chris Spielman was the middle linebacker. So it's been a long time since they,
And I think that's something that we're going to have to talk about later, is experience at the head coach position or at any position as a head coach. Because like you brought up the Lions have a lot of former players on their staff. And sometimes you can get losing teams to buy in just because they look at your resume. And they look at, when you look at Antonio Pierce, he goes Super Bowl champion, all pro. You know what I mean? You're like, God damn. But he still has to bring it on the field. And I'm not saying that, but like Jeff Saturday was a former player. He got his team to buy in for one game or whatever he needed to. They look at that experience just a little bit more because you've been through the same fight that they've been through.
Yeah, the reason the Raiders are in this mess is not solely on Josh McDaniels. It's because the players aren't very good. Like, that's just the bottom line. Is like, there's a little bit of a there are talented players on the Raiders, don't get me wrong, but the reason they're losing is because they just don't have enough in the secondary, in the middle of the defense. So like, there's a lot of issues there. Harrison's been very involved in this chat, so I'm going to use my pick to shout out him in the Frank Reich revenge game. And Harrison, look who your boy picked this week. And last week, if I had any stones, like I said several times, I was really close to switching to the Panthers over the Texans, and I just couldn't pull the trigger. Harrison called me out and said that I had no huevos on that one. I should have done it. I really should have switched my pick. I would still be in first place had I done it. But I think the more that I watch from Bryce Young, the more I feel like they really did make the best decision. Like, they're asking Bryce Young to do a little bit more, and some of the plays that he's able to make are great. Like, he has enough athleticism with talent mixed with intelligence as he figures this stuff out, and the offensive line improves, and they can bring in, some weapons. Mingo advances, but then they also go out and try to get a Brandon Ayuk in the building. Maybe they get, they're able to draft a game-changing tight end in the upcoming draft here, and all of a sudden the Panthers look a lot better headed into next season. But the reason that I'm picking him in this game is more so based on what I'm seeing from the Colts, where it's like they can't be consistent, not in the red zone. Like with Gardner Minshew, like, it's fun and it's sort of like all or nothing, where there's like crazy bad turnovers to where I think that the Panthers have enough on defense where they're going to be able to get sacks. Like, Brian Burns is going to be able to have a big game in this. They're going to be able to get turnovers, interceptions in the secondary here. So I kind of like this, like, to get a little momentum rolling, the ball rolling, and Frank Reich to be able there with his boys afterwards. They give him the game ball in the locker room. Here you go, coach. You stuck it to Jim Irsay. Why are you picking the Colts? Like, what makes you? Is it because you think the Panthers are bad, or you think that they can actually like win the game?
It's a little of both. The Carolina Panthers have gotten better as the year has gone on, and their offense is starting to click. And Adam Thielen is showing that he's drank from the fountain of youth a little bit and still making those good catches. But something about the Colts is that they're a tough team, and they've been hanging in every game, Tony. Like, even when Anthony Richardson went down, it gave him the opportunity to be like, you know what, we suck. We're gonna have to lose some games. But no, Gardner Minshew comes in and he keeps them close. The only thing about the Colts is they play to the level of their opponent. So if they have to play a good team, they're going to play really good and hang with them. If they got to play a crappy team, it's going to be an ugly game. So this right here, I think it's going to be one ugly ass game. And I think it's going to be turnover and then great play, and it's just going to go back and forth. But at the end of the day, who's the better team, Tony? When you're looking at the overall roster, yeah, we don't know some of these guys names on the Colts defense, but they're a tight-knit group and they get it going. And so I'm going with the better overall team, which would be the Indianapolis Colts, in my opinion.
Colts last 3 games, they're allowing 38 points. 37 to the Jaguars.
What are they scoring?
39 to the Browns, 38 to the Saints. Yeah, they scored 20 against the Jaguars. They scored 38 against the Browns, and they probably should have won that game. It was versus bad calls. And then they scored 27 last week to the Saints. But it's like their defense is getting put in very bad positions because of some bad turnovers at times. They're not really doing anything well defensively over the stretch. Like, the last team that they beat was the Titans, and that game was like, if I can remember, was that the Malik Willis start? Right?
I don't remember.
It was like the game, or it was the game where Malik Willis came in, I think, for an injured Ryan Tannehill in that game. Like, I just don't think that the Colts are close. And if they had Anthony Richardson, it'd be different. Also, there's like something weird happening with the Colts where it's like, why did Jonathan Taylor not get the ball in the second half of like some of these games where he's clear? And I get it. Zach Moss is really good, but you still got to find a way to feed him. I think that their recipe for success is that Moss and Taylor carry the ball 40 plus times in this game. That would be the reason that I picked them. I'm just not sure that that's going to be the game plan.
So there's only one reason I would change my pick, Tony. Is Harrison going to be in the building on Sunday? If Harrison is going to be there for the Panthers, then I'll change my pick because that's the only time the Panthers win is when Harrison goes to the game. If he's not going to the game, I'm sticking with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, like he said, he was nervous in that last game, and he got to see a good one. That final drive by Young was great. There were some early red zone stops in the first half there. I was really hoping to finally get a touchdown from Dameon Pierce. Like that's just been killing me in fantasy, and they take it off the board.
Well, didn't they take 2 Dameon Pierce touchdowns off the board? Because I remember sitting there going, damn, this sucks for Pierce owners, like fantasy owners. Like, you've been waiting for a touchdown all year, and it looked like he had 2, and they've taken it right off the board. It's like, damn it.
It was brutal. I only saw one. I was getting ready to head out to SoFi last Sunday. So, yeah, he's not going. His old man can't do the 405 games. I get it. And that's the weird thing. I saw that, and I was like, they were just looking for a game to put in the late slot. Because if Kansas City, if this game wasn't in Germany, the Kansas City game would have been the other, 4 o'clock kickoff time, would have been the late kickoff window. But since they're in Germany, they were looking for another team to put. And so they put Carolina in there, which I was like, that's a little weird. But, they also have the Eagles, another late start. Like, that's kicking off at like 7:05 Eastern time. Like, those games are kicking off late. But whatever. I'm going to watch it.
Let's go to that game, Tony. Let's go to that game. We'll go to the Eagles-Cowboys. Why are all of us going with the Eagles? All 3 of us, me, you, and Mike, are taking the Eagles to win this game. The Cowboys have won 4 of the last 5 meetings. And then last year, Dak put up, 42 points on this Eagle defense is dominant, and the Eagles defense isn't as good as it was last year. And we're sitting here and we're going, I like what Jalen Hurts said. AJ Brown has probably been the best wide receiver since week 2, since him and Jalen Hurts got into it, right? AJ Brown has been putting on his show. I'm going with it. This is why I'm going with it, because I don't trust that Dallas offensive line. I don't trust Tony Pollard. The running game for Dallas is not the same this year. They don't have that 1-2 punch. Even if Zeke was out of it last year and wasn't the Zeke from the past, at least they were able to use Tony Pollard as that change-up back and do a couple different things with them out of the backfield. We finally got to see CeeDee Lamb become the number 1 wide receiver that he is, even though Richard Sherman said he's not one. It was good to see them actually use CeeDee Lamb correctly last week. But I think there's too many question marks on the Dallas Cowboys. Their defense is there, and I like their defense. But when it comes down to the offense going against a good defense like this, or a defense with a great pass rush, because I think Jalen Carter is going to have. I don't know how much you got to watch of the Rams game, the Rams and the Cowboys last week. The referees gave the Cowboys an out on their first drive, but Aaron Donald and that defensive line was on Dak the whole time that first drive, and it had to change them around. And then we already talked about how the Rams are a young team. They just didn't have enough to continue throughout the whole game. This defensive line for the Eagles, I should just make a bold pick right now, Tony. I should just make a bold pick and say 10 sacks this game for the Eagles defense. Like 10, just in one game, I think they're going to get 10 sacks.
I was looking on my phone. I wanted to see if Jalen Carter was a full participant, and I just saw a story where it said 21 hours ago, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter were full participants. And I do think that is also the reason why I'm taking the edge is the offensive and defensive lines for the Eagles. However, I think there's a lot of points scored in this game. The Eagles defense has not been great against the pass. I think there's an opportunity for Brandon Cooks to have a couple of big plays in this game and maybe even get, Michael Gallup going, or Jalen Tolbert could surface. The tight end has an opportunity to make some big plays in this game. So I do think the Cowboys hang around. I think it's one of those games where it's 30-28. It's high scoring. It's a lot of fun to watch. But there's just something about Jalen Hurts that I have much more confidence in, even though he's not had tons of success against the Cowboys in his short career. Like, it'd be great, if he kind of had one of those Patrick Mahomes versus all the other teams in the AFC West type of a situation. But that's more what Dak has going for him. Like, when you hear people all week talking about Dak's 8-3, it's like, wow, really? He's 8-3 and the Cowboys still can't make it to the NFC Championship game, and he's been dominating the other team like this. Like, the Eagles have been to 2 Super Bowls and won one of them since Dak's been in this division, and Dak can't even make it to the NFC Championship game. So I think the other thing that hurts the Cowboys too is this game is going to be played on grass. And I just believe that Dallas's defense is built for the turf. It's built for a speedier track. It allows Micah Parsons to have that much more of an advantage. When you can put him in on an artificial surface, it's like trying to contain. I don't want to make the comparison I was going to go, but like you have a surface where your team is built to play the best on, and I just don't believe that it's going to be on the grass for the Cowboys, as much as the Cowboys need this game to really keep this division race close. It'll be interesting to see if Jalen and the knee injury can keep headed in the right direction, right? Like, can he continue to maintain whatever the injury level is at? Make sure it doesn't get worse in this game, because I believe they have a bye coming up, right? So if that's the case, get him there and get him to a place where he can rest and dominate down the second half of the season. Anything else you want to talk about before I make my pick?
Well, of that game, no.
Yeah.
I just think that, I don't know, Tony. Do you think I'm way off on the 10 sacks? Like, how many sacks can you see the Eagles realistically getting? I know it's a bold pick to say 10 because it's like, holy shit, 10. But the defense had 70 something last year, and you already know how they get to the quarterback. But how many? If you had to pick, how many sacks would you go with?
Well, I mean, Chargers should have had about 8 or 9 sacks in that game if they could have just wrapped up and finished. They kept letting Dak get away and get loose and scramble. Hopefully that won't be the case. Yeah, I could see 6 to 8 sacks for sure. It's not even really that the Cowboys offensive line is that bad. It's that when they decide to pass downfield, they're not getting open separation. And I think that part of the thing you mentioned earlier with CeeDee Lamb is it's not that he's doesn't give you number one production, because I think he was like second team All-Pro last year. It's the fact that he doesn't win outside. Like, AJ Brown lines up outside and still dominates 6 games in a row with 125 yards receiving. Like, that's crazy. That is some amazing consistency with elite production level. Like, I don't think that if you put CD lined up outside as much as the X or the Z, whatever you choose, I don't think he's winning as often as players like AJ Brown, or Tyreek Hill, or even if you go back a little bit further and you go to the, Megatrons and Larry Fitzgerald outside, stuff like that. Like, he's just not winning at that level. And I think that's why people say he's not a number one, is because he flourishes more from the Y, being inside and having the ability to have a 4-way go from that spot. So I still would take CeeDee Lamb. I still think he's a top 10 player, but I understand what people are saying when they say that. They're also just trying to bring some more attention to their name. And if you can shit on a Dallas Cowboy, they're in for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm all for shitting on the Cowboys anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that is what gets people fired up. They get to share that on social and be like, "See, I've been telling you I was right. Richard Sherman's a future Hall of Famer, and he's saying this guy ain't shit either." Let's go to Bengals Bills, the site of one of the scariest things I've ever seen in the Damar Hamlin situation last year. I remember the text thread between us where I was just like, I have watched thousands and thousands of hours of football and never seen anything like that. It was insane. These teams are rematching at a point where it's like both of these teams, to me, desperately need this win. Like, I don't think the Bills falling to 5-4 in this spot is to the point where they might not make the playoffs if that happens. If they lose a tiebreaker with the Bengals, who I think are going to finish just short in the AFC North, that is brutal for them because the AFC is going to have a bunch of teams that have 9 or 10 wins competing for that last spot, and the Bengals will have the tiebreaker there. On the other side, the Bengals slow start, they can't afford to fall to 4-4 and continue to be in last place of a really tough division when they're already like, I don't think they have any chance of catching the Ravens. So like they really need this game. At the start of that game that got canceled last year, the Bengals looked like they were going to roll and they were going to whoop them. They went down and scored right away early in that game. They were driving again on another one, when the game ended up getting stopped. Then the playoff game happens and the Bengals just owned them. I'm really hoping to see Josh Allen come out there and go, oh, we got something for you guys here. The problem with that is that Lou Anarumo, who I think is a great opportunity to become a head coach this offseason, has got the defense rolling again. And that's the difference maker to me. And why I picked the Bengals is because I think at home that defense is going to be able to force Josh into making some late turnovers. They're going to be able to get some sacks, and the defense is going to be able to pull away in this game.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tony. The Bengals went into San Francisco last week. I thought they made a statement that said, "Hey, we're back. We got everything rolling." Joe Burrow looked healthy last week. He was rolling. He was running. It didn't look like the calf bothered him last week. That defensive line, the defensive ends, we're getting to the quarterback, getting to Brock Purdy, making him make just dumb mistakes. Great linebacker play. And Buffalo has been that top team, Tony, but so many damn injuries have hit their team this year that it's like, oh, crap. And then, like you said, it just starts to snowball. And now we're relying on Josh Allen to come out there and put the team on the back. And that hasn't worked out great in the past. Josh Allen is a great, good quarterback, top quarterback in this league. But when he has to make the big play, sometimes it's the interception that kills his team at the end of the game. I think it's going to be a really close game, but I think the Bengals are back, Tony. I think the Bengals are rolling in the right direction, and the Bills are just going the opposite.
It's going to be interesting to see if the trend of Dalton Kincaid continues to evolve, right? Like, does he continue to become the second playmaker on this team? Because they can get big performances sporadically from Gabe Davis or Khalil Shakur, but I think you just need more. I'm really hoping also too that this signing of Leonard Fournette does not cloud the fact that James Cook is the best running back on this team. Stop letting Latavius Murray, these guys do have a function in this offense. Don't get me wrong. They should be giving other carries to other people. But don't let this be a situation where James Cook, you get to the fourth quarter and it's like, he's only touched the ball 5 times in this game. Like, that should not be the case. We should be designing screens to him, Ken Dorsey. We should be getting him in the first half 8 carries. Like, get him. He's an explosive playmaker. Do not go away from him in the run game or the screen game.
I was going to bring that up. I was going to be like, why did they sign Leonard Fournette? Like, I don't understand. Like, James Cook is like you already said, an explosive player. He's a game changer. If in one play, he could take the ball and go all the way and change that whole game around. And he's, if you look at his stats, he's ranked like top 5 in a lot of great categories for running backs, but they just seem to go away from him, especially like late in the game. And I didn't understand, like, if you don't want to give him the ball inside the 5, cool. But I don't know. It's just like Buffalo is finding ways to just destroy themselves and go away from what works or what does great.
Yeah. If you're 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and you want to have Latavius Murray out there to pound the rock, or you have a great play design and you want Murray out there for pass pro, fantastic. I fully get it. But Cook should be on the field for 55 to 60% of the snaps, and he should be getting easily, 14 to 18 touches a game. Like there should be no games, and I don't know what his touch numbers are. Maybe they are there, and I'm just not. When I watch the game, I'm like, I just feel like they aren't featuring him in the game plan. It's just like, oh, we forgot about the fact that we have James Cook. We have to get him a touch on this play. Like, really design things to his strengths and use him like he is the second or third best player, not named Josh Allen in this offense. It should go Diggs, Cook, Kincaid. That's the way it should be. And if you get a favorable matchup at the line where you're like, oh, I got Gabe Davis on a back shoulder or a go route or whatever on this play, great. But it shouldn't. It should just look better. So I'm rooting for the Bills in this one, but I couldn't not pick Joe Burrow at home with how good they've looked in the last 3 contests that I've watched.
All right, so let's do this real quick, Tony. Let's just go. I'm just going to mention a couple things before we get to the main game, which is the Monday night game. We'll leave that one for the last one. Minnesota, I want to see what Minnesota does different. I'm not taking the Vikings, but I want to see how Hall does as quarterback for them. It is a big loss. I don't think people understand how big of a loss Kirk Cousins is for the Minnesota Vikings. We all give Kirk Cousins a hard time, but he is the leader of that team. Losing the leader of your team for the season, going up against Taylor Heinicke, who's starting for the Atlanta Falcons this week. You got that one going. Green Bay, Los Angeles, just a battle two average teams, I think. And then the Washington New England game, Tony. I don't know how you guys are taking Washington after they traded both defensive ends this week. That's a tough one for me. So I'm like, you just won. Washington's defense wasn't great to begin with, and now you got rid of both your best defensive players. Well, I wouldn't say both are the greatest because you still got the 2 defensive tackles, but you got rid of your 2 defensive ends, your young guys on the defensive end that were bringing the pressure, and you want me to be like, okay, I'm buying into it. And then what other game do we miss? Houston and Tampa Bay. Or if you got anything on those before, don't talk about the Charger game yet. We'll get to that last. But any other games that you want to just throw tidbits at?
Excited to see Taylor Heinicke out there. I wish Drake London was playing in this game. He's not. Van Jefferson dropping that ball. Bro, you want opportunities. You want to be on the field. You can't make this happen. You can't drop that football on 4th down. That's a first down, and the Falcons are driving with a chance to come back and ruin the debut of Will Levis. I was so pissed, even though I knew he dropped it. When I was rewatching it, I'm like, how do you drop that pass? It wasn't anything.
See, I remember you texting me. Now that you brought it up, I remember you texting me going, the Falcons dropped the opportunity, and I was like, yeah, they literally dropped it. Like, it was right in there, right there. Easiest catch you probably make.
They still had a long way to go, but you killed the opportunity with a minute and change left for that to be a game-winning drive. And this week, you potentially have a bigger opportunity with no Drake London out there. So I'm watching Heinicke in that one. I'm taking Green Bay in this matchup because I'm not sure that Matthew Stafford is going to be able to play or even finish in this game with the hand. And if you're telling me Brett Rippon on the road, I think Rashawn Gary and the rest of that D-line can be enough of a difference maker to win an ugly football game against a Rams team that just isn't very good. They're a couple of years away in this rebuild, in my estimation, of being like a legit contender. They might be a little feistier next year if they can fix some of the offensive line problems and these guys that they hit on a few of these defensive players in the draft. But I'm going to take Green Bay to win at home. Jordan Love still will not. I don't believe he'll look very good. And I'm taking Washington, Joe, because it's not because of the defense. Sure, the defense was not playing well before that. I'm taking it because the Patriots just aren't very good. And you sent a text to us last week, like, oh, the Patriots are back when they got out to like a 7-0 lead against Miami or whatever. It's like, no, they're not. They're not back. They lost to the Raiders, Joe, and you know how below average your Raiders are. This is not a good football team. They lost Kendrick Bourne. They're down even more. They're relying on a rookie, Douglas, to be the big playmaker in this offense. For whatever reason, they are not using enough of the multi tight end sets to really set up Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, where that is your strength on offense. You should be running out of form like 12 personnel and throwing out of 12 personnel a lot more. And you should be designing things for Ramondre Stevenson, and they're just not doing it. So I'm not
JC
picking
Jackson is back, Tony.
What?
JC Jackson is back.
Yeah, and he got a face full of of Tyreek Hill. You saw that video NFL Mike put out where he's given up, a country mile of yards to him this year and multiple touchdowns. It's like JC's a very good player. Nobody should be left one-on-one with Tyreek Hill. I do not understand when people are going to learn their lesson that leaving Tyreek Hill one-on-one, he would have smoked. If you think Deion Sanders, Champ Bailey, Darrelle Revis, if you think any of these great DBs, one-on-one, Richard Sherman, go down the list, is going to be left one-on-one with Tyreek Hill, you're going to have a bad, long, horrible day on offense, or on defense, because they will ruin your day. So we'll do quickly. I'll do my thoughts on the other two games that we have not touched on here, which is Clayton Tune starting against Cleveland. I want to say this: the Cardinals have written the blueprint on how to tank. We're going to trade for a quarterback to make us interesting, and we're going to compete, but we are definitely getting the number one pick in the draft. And we fooled some people by thumping the Cowboys, but we just aren't like that this year. They're going to be on pace to win 3 or 4 games if they get back Kyler and he can play next week. The other side, Deshaun Watson back. Is he going to make it through a whole game? How does the shoulder look? I still think that this is a 10-point victory for the Browns. And as for the Bucks and Texans game, this is Baker. You want to be a starting quarterback in this league next year? I think that you can be a starting quarterback. You have to keep your team relevant, and you have to find a way to go to Houston and put on a good performance, have no turnovers, have a couple of touchdown passes, and find a way to win this football game. Now, I'm taking the Texans because I just don't think that's going to happen. And I love Baker, and I root for him, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, Baker's hot and cold, Tony. You know that. And
yeah.
I mean, there's no bigger Baker Mayfield fan than you right here, if you remember this right here.
One of the greatest drives in NFL history. On 48 hours notice, he, thanks to Jerry Tillery, goes down and just teabags your team. Whew, that was a great night.
And then the Saints and the Bears, I think, are the other game that we haven't talked about. Yeah. And hey, Derek Carr, if you want to put on a performance, this is one that you come out and be like, look, Josh McDaniels was fired this weekend, and look at me tearing up the Bears defense.
Oh, this is Derek Carr needs to come out there and say, oh, last week wasn't a fluke. Last week wasn't just us catching a bad team. This is what we are going to look like. And hey, Atlanta, you can't be slipping anymore. You can't let any more games go if you want to win this division, because we're for real. I think the Saints defense is still a little wonky. Like, there's still something about it where it's like you can run on them, which is weird. You haven't been able to do that in the past. You can score on them again, which that really hasn't been the past. Dennis Allen needs to continue to make statements. On the Bears side here, it's like, get Justin Fields healthy and get him on the field. Like, just whatever it takes. Yeah. Just get him back, get him on the field, find out if he's going to be your quarterback or not. You're going to have some high draft picks. They potentially could end up with the number 1 pick too. So it's like, just let's find out. Let's get a final sort of evaluation on whether or not we think Justin Fields is the guy or not. And I'm not saying that for me. I'm saying that as the Bears organization. Like, really get him healthy and let him have a true final 5, 6, 7 game evaluation.
Well, yeah, because you're going to have 2 top picks, like 2 top 10 picks, basically, with that Bears team. So, yeah, you got to figure out, and you don't want to make the mistake 2 years in a row where you already picked Justin Fields over one of the young guys this year, right, over C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young, and you don't want to go into next year going, still having the same question marks about Justin Fields and be like, is he our guy? And then you pass up on every quarterback again this year. So you have to. That's the thing. Like that's what I don't get. Like you have to play your young guys, especially when you're starting to lose and you're. It's not tanking. There's a difference between tanking and playing your young guys. You got to see what you have for the future of the team. So like people will be like, well, they're tanking because they're playing this guy and or they took this guy. No, you are actually seeing your team and developing them and seeing what you have for the future. And there's a big difference between that and tanking.
Yeah, for sure.
Tanking would be like bringing me or you out of retirement and be like, hey, go play quarterback, Tony.
Yeah, I retired officially about a decade ago. I withdrew my name.
Was it the driveway incident that made you retire?
Oh, that ankle sprain was one of the more brutal.
I wish we had that on that I could just hit the button and be like, was it this one, Tony? And just like go to that incident all the time.
It's still painful to watch. Let's talk about Monday Night Football and this being a playoff game because these are two teams that are still in the hunt for a 6 or 7 seed in the AFC. And this game to me is 2017 Chargers has to be that kind of a game. And I said this yesterday. I was on Turn Up the Jets YouTube channel. If there's any Jets fans who catch this, go follow Joe Skirdo on Turn Up the Jets on YouTube and other social media platforms. But somehow the Chargers offensive line has to be able to just be good enough to make the story on Monday night after the game's over and Tuesday morning when we wake up that the Chargers defensive line was the best defensive line in that game. If they can find a way to keep the pressures and the sacks down on Herbert, I believe that the Chargers defensive line is going to get a lot of pressure and a lot of sacks on the Jets. And that has to be the story is like, whoa, we were all talking about the Jets defensive line, but look at the Chargers defensive line now that Bosa's healthy and Khalil Mack still has a lot of juice left. And Thule's out there, like continuing to further his case for defensive rookie of the year. And the defensive backs, can they show up and can they have a big night against Garrett Wilson, who I think is, emerging into that top 10 conversation, even with Zach Wilson at quarterback. Imagine if Zach wouldn't have lost Aaron Rodgers, the kind of season he would be having. So I am nervous the more I think about this game as a fan and the implications, because if it comes down to the end of the season and the Chargers are looking at being, 9-8 or 10-7 situation, and the last playoff spot comes down to a tiebreaker with the Jets, and all of a sudden we look back and it's like, oh, they laid an egg on Monday night, and that's why they miss out on the playoffs. Like, it can't be that case. Like, you're in a playoff atmosphere playing a playoff level team, at least the defense is. They have to find a way to win this game. And I believe that they will, but it's going to be close. 2016, 2017 type football game.
Yeah, and you forgot one X factor, Breece Hall. Stop Breece Hall. Don't allow him to make the big play, because we've all seen it that he's good for it once or twice a game, a 60-yard breakaway, and he's gone. And the whole momentum's there. Even with Zach Wilson at quarterback, this offense has been able to move, and they came back. They should have lost last week. The Jets were done. They were done. And somehow they made the great plays at the end of the game. And you could say missed field goal here or there. They made the plays when they had to make the plays. And they got down there. They went to overtime. They fought till the end. It's a tough, tough team. The defensive line, you hit on it, on the Jets. And part of me was like, I was like, damn. But the Chargers, I mean, when you look at the Chargers on paper, Tony, it's an amazing team. It's a good team that should be winning and blowing people out. This offense alone should be putting up points. I know they have no Mike Williams. I know Palmer got hurt a little bit last week, and then Q1 had to come in. But they should be dominating teams, and this should be a team. The Jets, I'm looking at the Jets, and I know they were without Aaron Rodgers, but you should not allow a Zach Wilson team to go and beat your team this week. Like Derwin James should have a big game. Every defensive lineman should have a big game. This should be a Charger win by 10. Maybe the Jets had a little hope at the beginning of the game, kept it close, and then they put it away at the end. So we saw a little hope of Austin Eckler last week. We saw the little bit of the old Austin Eckler, But was that just against a bad Bears team? I don't know. This is a good task for the Chargers, and like you said, this is playoffs right here because the Jets are playing to keep it close because the Jets are seeing the same thing you're seeing, Tony. A close AFC picture that 9 wins can get you in the playoffs. And Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers is already walking. He wants to get back by the end of this season just for that little run. So this could be, like you said, this could have playoff implications. But I think I can't. There's no way that I could go. I believe in Zach Wilson when I'm just looking at paper of the Charger team, and I hate giving the Chargers props, but they have a good team that they should be winning games.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If this game was just played on paper, the Chargers they should win the game by 10 points. They have a good enough defense. It's not as good as the Jets, don't get me wrong, but it's good enough to go up against Zach Wilson and this offensive line. Like, if you just look at the Jets offensive line, they're going to be playing with like 4 or 5 backups in this game. Like, there's not a lot of.
Is Dwayne Brown playing? And he's like 40 something, right?
Yeah, and when I say 4 or 5 backups, I mean like the backups, the starters' backups are hurt. Like, I feel like I'm doing like a Andre 3000, babies, mamas. Their backups be hurt. Like, they should be able to find a way to get pressure on Zach Wilson every time he drops back. And if they're trying to get quick throws, Asante Samuel should be able to jump some routes. Derwin should be able to get in there. If he hangs a couple balls over the middle, Eric Kendricks should be able to, deflect, get his hands on some passes. Alohi Gilman. This is a Chargers team that I think is focused and re-energized and understands the opportunity that's in front of them on Monday Night Football. And they're going to find a way to get a win. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's not going to be pretty because games against the Jets just aren't pretty. The defense is fantastic. They're not 85 Bears good like they were talking preseason, but they're really, really good.
Yeah, and we get to see the Jets on primetime 2 weeks in a row, Monday night, and then turn around and play on Sunday night. So they were looking forward to the Jets being a really good team this year. So hopefully the AFC West can just continue to knock them down.
Oh, if they had Aaron Rodgers in this game, I would have picked the Jets.
You'd be like, nope, Aaron Rodgers got him.
Just Aaron Rodgers against the way this secondary's been playing. And it's not even, I don't even necessarily think it's the ability of the players. It's the scheme that's being deployed where they're not allowing the guys to challenge anybody and playing sort of, I don't know, this weird off coverage and allowing the best wide receivers. If you have Garrett Wilson, you should start him because he's going to get some looks where as a fan, you're going to be sitting up and you're going to be going, wait, it's 3rd and 4. Why is Michael Davis 8 yards off the line of scrimmage? Like, what is the game plan here? Like, this is their best wide receiver. We saw it with CeeDee Lamb. We saw it with Travis Kelce. We've seen it all season long. So I worry about that aspect of it.
You play to win the game, Tony.
Play to win the game. Before we get out of here, Joe, just real quickly, because we didn't talk about Thursday Night Football. Kenny Pickett continues to be bad, like just missing so many throws to the point where I'm like, dude, why are you electric in the 4th quarter, but for the first 3 quarters, he missed George Pickens on like a 3rd and 4 crosser where he came to him late and then still threw the ball behind him and high at the same time, where it was like, you just can't miss that layup. Like, you can't miss that layup in high school football, let alone in the NFL. So it's head scratching. But on the other side, I think Will Levis is better than I gave him credit for and better than a lot of people gave him credit for. Like, he just continues to me to be impressive. And it was never a talent thing. For me, it was always just sort of like, what's he going to look like when it's really time to compete? And for the first 2 games, it's been outstanding. Like, I just didn't know if, like, when it got a little grimy and a little messy, like, what was he going to look like? and he seems to be stepping up for all of that and being fantastic in his first game.
There's no way. I don't see how Tennessee can go back to Ryan Tannehill now.
No.
They have to ride with Will Levis the rest of the year. And I don't know if you noticed this, Tony, and I brought this up to you the first game. And I think this would have been a whole different game if it was played on Sunday. But if Will Levis, when Will Levis first came in, I don't know if you went back and watched that game film and you watched, if you had time to do it, and watch how DeAndre Hopkins has basically taken Will Levis. And I've mentioned this multiple times, and I want to see this from a lot of wide receivers. And maybe this is from Hopkins doing it with multiple quarterbacks in his career. You see him talking to Will Levis in the huddle, and he's like, "Hey, get it going. Call that play. Get it." And you could just tell that he has that little bit of chemistry with Hopkins. And what better way for a young quarterback than to throw it up to your best wide receiver, right? The guy who's going to make you plays, and believe in him. And Will Levis is maybe we had the same doubts about him, Tony. We all saw what he could do in college. But it was that personality and the characteristics about his personality that were coming out in the draft. And everybody's like, dude, that's some weird ass shit that you're doing. What are we doing? And it kind of made him drop. And you wondered how he was going to do in the locker room. And maybe benching him, Tony, and put him in as a third string quarterback at the beginning of this year kind of humbled him a little bit, right? His hot ass girlfriend left him. And she's dating Anthony Richardson now. And she's like, hey, I'm going with the NFL star now. I'm leaving you. Maybe he got a little bit humbled and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the one thing I love, and that's NFL football and making plays. And so I don't know what happened, but these last two games, even in this game, even in this loss, he made some plays that I was like, Will Levis could be. I mean, he's made him, C.J. Stroud, and Bryce Young. Look, they've all done things this year that make you go, okay, this rookie class or these quarterbacks way better than last year's. And to go on Kenny Pickett, I mean, what's up, Kenny Pickett? Like I put a lot of stock into him coming into the offseason, thought he was going to make that stride. He was one of the best quarterbacks of last season. Towards the end of last year, led the Steelers down. And then George Pickens is being George Pickens. He's now the third wide receiver to come out this year to complain about his team. He put on there like help me on social media and then took it off. But it was Jamar Chase first, then Devontae Adams, and now George Pickens is out there. And they have the right, Tony. They're playmakers. But then again, George Pickens, if you would have put your toe down too, you can make all these amazing catches, but that one time they need you to put your toe down, you didn't do it. So I don't know what's going on with the Pittsburgh offense. But Matt Canada came down for the first time on the field. That I don't know if that made a difference. But Najee Harris, Tony, and the running backs, Jaylen Warren, they're starting to run the ball. They're like the running game is starting to get there. It's just, I don't know. It's just, but then again, Pittsburgh wins games that they're not supposed to, and it makes no sense. But
yeah, I thought this game was entertaining and well played on both sides of the football for the most part. Kenny Pickett and George Pickens are not a good combination, right? Because you need to be able to get him the football, and that doesn't. Like Kenny's priority is, I need to manage. I need to figure out how to like keep this offense moving ahead of the sticks. He can't take as many chances because he can't make up for it. So you need to be able to have that quarterback that can say, "Oh, I can take a chance on 2nd and 8 deeper down the field, and if it doesn't get completed, 3rd and 8, I'll be fine. I'll get the first down." He's like, no, I need to take the more responsible play to make sure we get to 3rd and short at minimum. At least that's what it feels like when I watch it.
Yeah.
So,
George, and maybe that's pleasing his coach, Tony. Like, hey, instead of throwing it 15 yards downfield, and we can get that easy play to make it 3rd and 3. Let's do that. But sometimes those big plays, like you said, are the game changers and get your offense rolling better.
Yeah. To me, it's like, I've been saying this for a while, and it's not, you can't put it on Matt Canada that the offense isn't going well when players are wide open and the quarterback isn't delivering. And maybe it's injury, lack of cohesion because you are missing practice because you're banged up, elbows, ribs, all these different injuries. I get it. It's super difficult. Not saying that I could do it, but you are getting paid to do it. You got picked with a premium draft pick. Like, you just have to. And I root for the Steelers. This is my mom's favorite team. Like, she loves the Steelers. I picked them to win. I sat there and watched the game at my nephew's birthday party like a chump and cheered for the Steelers. They had to come drag me out to sing happy birthday. But like, it's just not good, Joe. It's not good.
Well, week 9, Tony, we're getting there where it's like, I love the weather, love the cold weather. It's starting to get football feeling. But I also know that the end of the season is right around the corner, and I hate that too, Tony. So enjoy week 9. Enjoy everything we can get out of this week. It's going to be fun.
Yep. Don't even talk about that. We got a lot of time to go.
I can talk about it if I want to, Tony.
I'm excited. We got a good slate of college football. I'm going to get some of that stuff in. I've been enjoying watching more college football than just Michigan this year. So, yeah, there it is. Big win for the Raiders this week. And everybody's going to be, all the Raider fans are going to be like, Antonio Pierce is the coach we need. It's going to be nuts.
I don't know. I don't think people understand. And like, people have attacked me because they got my loyalty mixed up. But it's okay. But I don't think people understand what goes into bringing a new head coach in. Like, it's like it doesn't matter who fires a coach. Like, any team can fire a coach. There's going to be 6 or 7 openings at the end of this year in the NFL. That means something's wrong with your franchise. That means there's a lot more than just play calling and stuff. There's a lot of things that go wrong with it. You can't just bring one guy in and be like, oh, we changed the whole thing. It might change the atmosphere and it might help you out, but there's a lot that goes into a head coaching firing that I think people forgot, and people got happy because, I mean, what bigger scapegoat than the quarterback and the head coach, Tony?
Yeah.
Those are the 2 biggest scapegoats on any team. Who's the most favorite player on an NFL team? The backup quarterback, right? And so the Raiders did both. They said, okay, fans, we're going to listen to you. We're going to fire the head coach, and we're going to bench the quarterback. Now the pressure's on them. But any team, there's a lot that goes into it. And there's a lot of teams that we see right now that could be without a head coach pretty damn soon. I don't know. I think it's great for a change. It's good to be excited for a change, but you also have to be a little bit realistic when it comes down to it and look at the bigger picture.
I mean, yeah, Joe, I'm battling that argument with Chargers fans every week. They want to fire their second consecutive coach with a winning record. Like, that's the reality of the situation. It's like, Brandon Staley has a winning record as a head coach of the Chargers, and they want him gone. And if he loses on Monday Night Football, it's going to get, the comments are going to get even louder with the fire Brandon Staley, as if the answer to turning the team around is out there. Because the thing that people love the most is mystery and unknown. It's always like, everything's always a little bit hotter when you don't really know everything about it.
Well, we're in a win now situation, Tony, with the social media and everything out there. There's more pressure on these teams to win than before, like when we were kids, right? We're not, for most coaches, right? And you have to give, if you're not willing to give these coaches 2-3 years to start, or at least 3 years to get their players, get their system, get people to buy in, then why are you hiring these guys? Like, I know, but look, how much pressure do you put on these coaches? Like, how easy it is for me to pick up my phone and say, fire Tony Tucker, send that out, and then 100 people are jumping on the same damn thing. And now it's getting to the organizations and everybody else jump on. Now we're going to state. Look at Matt Canada. Matt Canada, they're yelling fire Matt Canada at hockey games, Tony, at hockey games. Like, people don't even know who Matt Canada is are saying fire Matt Canada. And it's ridiculous that the amount of pressure that we put on, and then we need to do a show on this. But I mean, maybe we're just having only one team can win a Super Bowl every year. Only one team. And so, I mean, we have to kind of realize when we have to be a little bit realistic on some of these teams.
Yeah. We got to end the show with a negative comment from Steezy Monster here. Come on, bro.
I don't even know the old layout.
I don't know what it is either. But all right, have a great
the old layout where the 3 of us were like a box. I don't know. I like input, but I don't know which one he's talking about. But
I don't know either.
Either way,
Steve Monster, I hope your team wins this weekend. Have a great, safe, fun weekend. Joe, let's get out of here. Let's end this show. No
Niner
music.
fans got your favorite kind of candy.
Skittles. I'm ending the stream. It's gonna end.